Format output using printf. We've been using print and printline methods this semester. So system out print line prints hello, and then the new line character, so that the following output would begin on the beginning of the next line. A bit more complex but useful way of formatting output is the printf method. And so equivalently to the print line, we have the printf method here. It will also print hello and a new line character. So in short, the first argument of printf is a format specifier, and then all following arguments are actually the arguments to the format specifier. We'll go through this in some detail. Output and string formatting. So the three methods shown here are basically, the first one formats output and returns a string of formatted output. So it takes the arguments and formats the output, but it returns a string. The system out format and system out printf are equivalent methods, and they both write to system out. Okay, so notice in all three of these, the first parameter is a format string. So within that format string, it's a own language itself, and we'll get into some examples shortly. And then notice the second argument, or more accurately, all the rest of the arguments, because in Java you can actually have a variable number of arguments. So all the rest of the arguments are actually arguments, are the data to be used in the string format. So we'll see some examples of this, but there's several different methods that we can use. Formatter examples. First of all, at the top we see three variables, s, pi, and num, with some values that we'll be formatting. In white, we see the example output for the four example printf calls at the bottom. So first, look at the first line of output. We've got 5 spaces, hello, comma, %, comma. How do we create that? So if we go to the first system out printf, we see %10s, and that's how we get the field width of 10. And notice the first argument after that is just s. So the contents of s, hello, get formatted in the field width of size 10. Then we literally have a comma, then 2% signs. Within the first argument to printf, 2% signs means literally print out 1, because % has a special meaning. So if we actually want a % sign printed out, then use 2 of them. And the commas are just literally printed out. And then we put in a new line character. So if you examine the first printf, it corresponds to the first output. Moving on to the second one. So in this case, we've got %-10s. That means left justify the argument, in this case hello, in a field with the 10, and then capital S means capitalize it as well. And so we see in the second line of output, all capital hello, followed by a comma, followed by a new line. The third one, different ways of formatting a floating point number. So the first, in the third printf, the first %f, that's just format a floating point number. And we notice the arguments are all pi, following the format specifier string. And so basically, if you just want %f, then it'll write it out 3.141593. Then the second one is %04.2f. Basically, it means in a field with the 4, 2 digits after the decimal, print out pi. So print out pi with 2 digits. The third one, %-10.4f. So in a field with the 10, left justified with 4 decimal places, print out pi. And then finally, %e is print out pi in exponential notation. the fourth printf. D is for decimal, so typically how we do integers, and we see %D to print out the value 16. The percent open parenthesis 5D, that means put parentheses around it if it's negative. And we see the second num is negative for our purposes there. So basically just put parentheses around negative numbers. %O5D in a field width of 5 with leading zeros, print out the number. And then %+5D, then print out the sign in a field width of 5. And %X is print out the number in hexadecimal. So 16 in hex would actually be hexadecimal 10. And so that's how we end up with the fourth line of output. So some examples of usage of some common format specifiers. You don't have to memorize all these. This is just beginning to get familiar with the notation. All these details, if used on an exam, there would be a brief description of each of these. Format specifier. So we're talking about the string that's the first argument to printf. And basically each format specifier begins with a % and ends with a type. And so what's shown here, anything within the square brackets indicates optional. And then there's different things: argument index, flags, width, precision, dot precision. These are all different optional things within a format specifier. So I'm showing you the slide to say basically there's a lot of flexibility. This is its own little language for formatting output, but it's not something that you memorize. It's something like that you're aware of. It's like, oh, there's ways of formatting output concisely. It's a bit cryptic, but you can figure it out. Or if you see in somebody else's code, it's like, oh, okay. Each format specifier begins with a %, ends with some character that's a type, and then I can figure out what it's doing. Okay, but no need to memorize all this. If you do a bunch of this, you'll learn it, but no need to memorize it. We're not going to be. So applying this, what is the correct output? So main, we've got a string named Fred, num 100, a double, pi again. So we've got our two printf statements, and we show that we're literally printing out hello followed by a space. All four examples have that. And then we have %6s, so format name, which is Fred, in a field width of 6. And so Fred is 4 characters, so we'll have 2 spaces and then Fred. And so we're looking at basically the answer options B, C, and D at this point. Then we look at printf, the second printf, %05D. And so in a field width of 5 with leading zeros, print out D, which is 100. So now we're down to option D, and let's see if the rest of it works out okay. So following 100 in a field width of 5 with leading zeros, there should be a comma, and then %.2f is format the floating point number with 2 decimal places, and we see that with 3.14.